Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Three Advisors and a Business. I'm Sidney Wayman here with Mercedes. I'm sorry, I'm here with Deidre Mercedes and BJ
You can say
Handel.
Mercedes. Say Mercedes.
Yeah, I know. But I keep forgetting. I mean, I want to say both names, and both your names are first names, so I often get confused on which one
I'm
to
gonna
say
take
first.
one. I'm gonna take one of them down, and you can go
There
ahead.
you go.
But we're here with Deidre Mercedes and BJ Handel.
Yeah.
Welcome to today's show. Today we are discussing a different business, a different kind of business. It's actually a construction company that does commercial construction, mid-sized projects, office build-outs, retail, light industrial. And their primary customers are developers, property managers, and general contractors. Pardon me, they do about 9 million a year, and they've been growing. And so that growth leads them to believe that they've been successful in terms of strong project pipeline, consistent revenue growth, and positive EBITDA. But the company is struggling, as most of the companies we've talked about have been. And the owner is telling us that they're busy, but he's not sure which of the jobs that they're busy on are actually making money. And he's also kind of complaining that they finish projects, but still don't have cash. So, same kinds of issues we've been dealing with some of the other companies, relatively successful in terms of growth, revenue growth, but issues with managing operations and managing that growth so they see the benefit of that growth. This company has about 42 employees, 22 are in field labor crews, 10 are skilled trades like electricians, plumbers, carpenters. They have 4 site supervisors and 2 equipment operators. Their total production labor is about 2 mil. They have 4 managers on staff, including the CEO, who makes about 180,000 a year. And then they have operations manager that makes about 130, a project manager lead that makes 115, and a finance manager who makes 105,000. So the total management payroll is a half a mil. Then they have 4 employees on the administrative staff, 2 project coordinators, each making 60,000, an AR billing specialist that makes 55, office admin that makes 50. So total administrative cost is about 225,000. So their total production payroll is 2.1 mil. Management is a half a mil. Administrative is 200,000. So their total payroll is about 2.8 million. And that gives them a payroll burden, which are, benefits and payroll taxes of about 600,000. So total labor is 3.4 mil. So their revenues are 9 mil, and labor cost takes up about a third of that. So interesting company. They have about 2.8 million in gross profit, which only 31% profit margin, which seems a little low to me. Insurance is about a half, 200,000. Software IT is, this is kind of, I'm sorry for laughing, but they spend 120,000 on software IT. But as we talk about some of the issues, you'd have to say, well, what is that IT being spent on? So the company, as I mentioned, has about 900,000 EBITDA, but they can't seem to figure out where the cash is. They only have a cash balance of 150,000. Receivables are 2.2 million. Work in progress is 1.4, and equipment is 1.2. So they have relatively high level of receivables. Accounts payable are about 1.2. So you could say that their payables are kind of like financing their work in progress, but still with receivables of 2.2 million, it's kind of scary. So let's start out. one of the issues is that job profitability is unknown. So management does not know what they're making on their jobs. All right. So Mercedes is going to say,
What am I going to say?
I
They
so,
have no
I
make.
so.
They have hardly any metrics. If you don't know how much money you're making on each one of your jobs, that's kind of a bare minimum thing to understand. And they what is it? They've got 22. Where's that number at? 22 field teams, right? I read that.
22,
Say
they
again.
have 22 employees working in the field.
Yeah,
Now, well, see, now I read that as it says field labor crews.
right.
Are we saying that that's 22 crews?
No, they're saying that that's 22 employees. If you look at it, they have it's like a little
48,000, yeah, okay.
yeah. So it's not yeah.
Okay, all right. I think that's a lot of people out there, as compared to site supervisors. And maybe I'm not understanding the field crews. Maybe I'm looking at that like they got 20, like they have approximately 22 jobs open out
No,
there.
I wouldn't look at it that way. I would
Okay.
say they have 4 site supervisors. They have, it all depends, right? Construction is kind of interesting, and you can really quickly kind of like easily lose sight of where you are
And
on a
that's my
particular
point.
project.
And that's my point. If they're not tracking their spending effectively. There's a number in here about what their receivables are, but where is that? Do they know exactly where everything is going? Do they have the right materials going to the right places? How much, when you're just dealing with all the aspects of construction, there's definitely, it's not just the finances that are out of control, or not being tracked well, because but it would also lend to, what's happening in the field and why do you have so many receivables? And I've seen it, I think we all have heard of it, that you buy 100,000 units of something, and because you've got one project that's got more money than another one, and you're using those units in 2 or 3 different places, and you start doing that and you don't have good metrics and you don't have good identification and traceability, that's where you start losing money. And if you're not thinking about transportation, because if it's shipped to one place and then you have to ship it to someplace else, maybe somebody's losing sight of those costs. There's so many things that, of course, that can go wrong, but it's so easy to do these kinds of things in construction. So I can see why, they're just running and running and running, and they're not tracking, it's not no idea of traceability, don't know what, maybe it's possible they're not sure what their logistics looks like. There's too many numbers, and you gotta be so tight with everything.
Yeah, and when you look at what they have between their receivables and work in progress, they have $3.6 million as a $9 million in sales. There's $3.6 million in unpaid progress. You're gonna have a very hard time dealing with cash flow. And you kind of have to come back to what Mercedes was saying. You need the plan for this, and you need to understand what is working, what is costing you money, what is not really working, because right now they're taking jobs that are good and bad and they actually don't know the difference. And that's really
right.
a dangerous position, because you need to understand what works in your benefit, what is the best for you, what will help your cash flow, where do you make money, and what are things that hurt you. And if you're combining those two things, then you're going to always be hoping for the best, which is about the most you can do. You're not planning for it. You're not setting your business so that you can sell according to where you should be selling. You're just out there selling and hoping this all works out. That's a very dangerous place to be. They're doing a good job, they're getting money in, but they could end up in trouble pretty quickly. And I think that what you want to do is straighten the business out so that the owners know, you really need to know, what am I doing? Where am I making a profit? Where is this worthwhile? Where is my cash flow useful? And where is it going to hurt? I don't see, Sydney, I don't see where that's coming in at all.
And I see one of the other bigger problems, just piggybacking off of what you're saying, EJ, is in construction, there's a high, probability of I almost cussed, I'm sorry. There's a high probability of stuff happening.
Yeah.
And when you have all this stuff out there in the field and you don't know what's actually going on and you don't know where your money is, that means that you don't know what's really going on in your operations out there in the field. One mistake could take this company halfway down the drain, like all the way down the drain. And so when you're dealing, and I don't mean like, someone getting hurt or killed or anything like that. I'm just talking about, blowing up somebody's property because, or well, I did say nobody was getting hurt, but, maybe misplacing a large shipment and, maybe getting sued for, not doing the right thing or not having the right. Now I know there's permits and everything like that, but there just seems to be a lot of visibility lost when you don't have your metrics. It's one thing to be in a building and when there's a problem, you can go to the fourth floor and ask what the problem is. It's another thing when you might have to jump into 6 different trucks and go to 6 different sites to find out what's going on a daily basis and understand it. And that's that lends to a high probability of risk.
Yeah, and they're good at making it work in a difficult situation if they had it structured so that they were building and only taking orders really in an area where they made money and they were able to do this well. If they can do well under difficult circumstances, they probably do extraordinarily well under good circumstances. If they ran it tighter, you could manage this in a way that would get you what you want, and it would be a lot easier to run it. And you would not have all of the cash flow problems.
Yeah, and that statement in the first thing where the owner says, we're busy, but I'm not sure which jobs are making money.
Yeah.
Sounds like sounds like there's not enough urgency in that statement. Like if I were the owner, I'd be tightening things up, just like you said. You got to tighten that up.
Yeah, and if the owner doesn't know what jobs are making money, it's kind of hard to direct the sales force to say these are the things I want you to go after. If I don't know what it's going to be hard to tell you what you should be doing.
Yeah, and then most of these jobs are probably coming to them like, we want you to build something. They're probably not out there selling. They're probably more so, but it's the same principle because there are some jobs there are some sites that you should not be on. There's some projects that you should not take.
Yeah.
So it's the same principle. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically,
there's a good opportunity that's here. However, they need to work at it. There's going to be a lot of work to get it done.
well, basically, I kind of find construction to have a lot of issues, but when run properly, it could turn out to be a fairly decent and profitable business. I think you guys have hit on some issues, right, and some problem areas. I think for someone in construction to say that they don't know which projects are profitable suggests that they're not managing the business at all, because the first thing you do, somebody comes to you and say, okay, I have this construction project, are you interested? Well, the first thing I would do is put together a budget for the project and look to see what it actually costs me to do what they're asking me to do, and then tack on my profitability or my profit that I desire, and then say, okay, this is what I'm bidding on your project. And if they accept my bid, then I'm going into that project knowing that I'm going to make whatever profit I had in my preliminary budget. Now, things happen, like you were saying, Mercedes, things happen. Problems crop up. So in my contract, I will probably have wording that says that unforeseen issues, pardon me, that are not my problem, but are the project's problem, then the client would have to pick up, right? So that I'm not out there working on something, for example, let's say I'm doing, I don't know, I'm building a plant or a warehouse, and we start digging and we find that there's oil under the ground, right? And then we look and say, oh, there used to be a gas station on this property, right? And so we have to, I think law requires you to remediate that by, digging it up and doing a whole bunch of stuff well, I'm not going to cover that cost. That's for the owner of the project to cover, right? So I would have wording in that. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, if you're managing someone in the construction business, the key thing, as far as I'm concerned, is being able to bid and develop, fairly accurate budgets for your projects that show your profitability and what your profit should be. And then it's a matter of managing that process. And I guess for me, when I'm looking at this company, they have, site supervisors, they have all these folks, but they're obviously not, either not doing their job, or maybe they don't have budgets in place to manage against, right?
I
When,
am so glad you said that.
what?
Because I was going to say somebody needs to be fired, but I mean,
Wow. You love firing people.
no,
No,
actually I don't.
I-
I like reallocating resources to make a more effective system. That's what I like. But you have to understand where those things need to be, where those that reallocation needs to happen. And if you don't understand where you're losing money, and why your site supervisors, to your point, they should be the first people to, not the first, but they should know where money is leaking and how that's happening.
Yeah,
But
what
they
I
can
would,
only know that if they have that budget that they're working with. You know what I mean? So the question becomes, like, in this instance, we'd have to step back and say, okay, let's look at your process. Somebody, do you bid? Do you create budgets for your project budgets? Do you create them? Do you track them? Do you allocate it by day? You could take, what do they call it? Project management. You can create a project management but I don't know whether you call it a spreadsheet or whatever, and say, okay, on day one, we're doing A, B, C, and D. What does that,
That's
right?
yeah.
And you
Yeah,
do that for the whole project, you should know.
the point that you made is really excellent, because really the question comes down to now, how is it you actually budget a project? When someone says, I want to build something, how do you quote them?
Right.
I mean, really, who does it and how do you quote it, and who in management has any input to this? Is there any standardization within the company that this is what it is that we're supposed to make?
And one of the things, oh, go
How do
ahead.
we do it?
How do you do it? And one of the things that most project construction managers will tell you, foremen, owners, contractors, everyone will say, is a very, very expensive process is the change process. The change process, if you don't have control of your change process, particularly on a construction site, man, that's and I think that's what I'm talking about when you're talking about, budgeting. and when changes happen. A change on a construction project can mean, you know, material changes, time changes, labor changes, specialists maybe, to, you know, to your point of, you know, finding oil, and then, you know, having to do an environmental study after you dig all of that stuff up, and then having to wait 6 months to do another one to see, you know, listen, well, I don't know if it's 6 months, I don't know what it is, but I know there's a time period, that there's some time periods that can totally shut a job down. So if those are the things that, you know, if you don't have the right investigations done, and it's not always on like this company, but it is incumbent on the company to ensure whoever owns the project has done their due diligence. You know, because you could, it doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that it doesn't matter if it's the owner's fault for not digging deep enough, or finding the gas tank. But if you, as the construction company,
It is the owner's fault. How you gonna buy some land and not know what's up under it?
no, but that's what I'm saying is it is the owner's fault, but
I thought you were saying it's not. I
but the
thought I heard you say
construction
it's not the
company,
owner's fault.
the
Definitely.
construction company has a responsibility to say, did you do this? Did you do your due diligence before I step foot? And I know what you're saying. You put that
Right.
caveat in there, but you still want to know before you take the project. You don't take projects, you know, just because, you know, hey, we forecasted that we're going to make $10 million on this project. Because if that's the reason that you've taken it and you haven't done your due diligence to make sure that everybody down the line has done their due diligence, that $10 million can turn into 250, and I mean $2.50 really quickly.
Yeah.
So there could be so many variables and different issues and risks and changes and all kinds of things that this owner and does, as he says, he does not know. That's the problem. You don't know, which means that there are some things that you have to put in place immediately. Because I don't care if the sky is falling and the ground is crumbling. At least you should know when the sky is going to hit the ground.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing you do need to understand is how much profit am I making on everything, on each project? If you don't know that, you should know it, and you have to dig into it to understand it, because you just can't do that.
Well, that just this guy is saying that every project they have is a guessing game.
Right.
That's what
Yeah.
he's saying.
Yeah, we'll make money, just hope that this is one that is. That's really not a good way to do this.
I don't know whether I would say that and like I said, we don't really know. We didn't get into, you know, we didn't speak with management to find out exactly what their process is for, you know, taking on a new project, what they go through, right? But, you know, we have to also be aware that maybe they may be actually developing bid proposals that, you know, look at the cost or whatever, but there could be some other things involved, labor cost overruns. You know, maybe they said, hey, it's only going to take us 2 days to do this, and they budget labor for 2 days, but it turns out that it takes 4 days. All right. So their labor for that particular piece of the work is double what they estimated, right? So the question becomes, okay, what caused that problem? Right. So they could be developing budgets for each of their projects, but they're not managing the process well, or whoever's doing the bid, the whoever's developing the bid proposal is not very experienced in estimating time required to do certain things, right? So I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that may be wrong with how they're doing things. Maybe they are doing the budget, but they're not managing the process well, right?
As
So
Mercedes said, the whole part about change could not be managed right, or potentially is not managed right, and that's a considerably important thing here.
Yeah. I'm saying I'm thinking that outside of the budgets, outside of the planning, once all this stuff gets on, this company could be losing a lot of money with changes and managing. Heck, it could be labor, people taking off. That's a problem on construction sites. People not showing up, laborers. There could be all kinds of things that are happening on site that are not being managed well. And that's what I'm saying. That's where I was like, these site supervisors, okay,
They'll be fired.
they need
Right.
they need to be assigned a special project to get the numbers in and understand what's really going on these sites, however they do it. And I know it'll be different for every site, every build is different, unless they're doing some cookie cutter stuff, which evidently they're not. So the site supervisors may not need to be fired, but they certainly, I think, need to be really honing in on what's going on. And the finance group has got to start getting some numbers and really looking at the actual versus the forecast and all down the line, because this owner needs to know where are we bleeding from.
Yeah, definitely a problem here. And I think it all comes back to management. And the processes or methods they're using to run the business. In any business, you have to manage cost and manage things. In construction, it's almost like every project is a new business.
That's right.
And you have to really manage that process very well. What's interesting is that it is noted that each project is managed differently depending on the site supervisor. So it seems like the company does not have standard processes, project management processes in place. So site managers are able to do things a little differently. For me, what I'd like to do is track the profitability of the projects by site manager and see if part of the problem is one or two of the site managers really don't know what they're doing, and see if we can localize the problem with profitability to those site managers. So I mean, it's a lot of crazy stuff here, but unfortunately, these problems are causing working capital issues. In construction, you pay for you have to pay for a lot. You might be able to get an advance from your client, right? You might be able to get an advance, but that advance is quickly eaten up with labor and supplies. And so chances are you're going to end up putting money out before you can even bill it. So you really do need to manage your billing process. And I don't think these guys are doing that at all. I mean, when you look at their work in process and their receivables, it's definitely, you look at the numbers, their cash on cash return is 118 days. That means that when you look at their receivables, the amount of time their receivables, it takes their receivables to turn to cash, their work in process to turn to cash, and then what they get, what the flow, the cash flow they get from their payables, they have to finance stuff for like 118 days. That's crazy.
And I think that project manager lead, is making enough money to be able to track, to ask for certain data, even if there should be at least, a few points of data that are the same, no matter what the project you know, is doing and how different it is. There's a few points of data that you know, everybody should be pulling those same numbers. And you may have a different reason for why it was pulled or this, that, and the other, but there's and that's to me that's the project manager as well. So the project manager is just whatever somebody says, you're just putting it in the spreadsheet, and that means that the spreadsheets are looking, or the system, whatever it is, that thing's got to be looking absolutely crazy across the board. If you can't pull the data from your project manager lead and know exactly how much money you're losing and where you're losing it, that's a problem as well.
Well, I mean, actually, when you think about it, what they should do, right, as I mentioned before, you know, they have the soft, and they're spending a hell of a lot of money on software,
Evidently, right?
right? But I don't know what kind of software they're spending it on, because you can easily get a construction management software package where it will break down each project by day,
Right.
you know, day by day by day, and it'll show you, okay, for what you want to do today, this is what labor is going to cost, this is what your supplies could cost. So you have that. All you have to do at the end of the day is see what you actually spent. So you can do a comparison, a variance analysis to see whether you're over or under on a daily basis, right? So you're right. The project manager, site supervisors, whoever's responsible for tracking progress, tracking costs, they're not doing something that they should be doing, which is a variance analysis on a daily basis, comparing what you budgeted based on your bid estimate to what you actually spent on a day by day by day. Doing that will let you stay on top of, you know, your costs, right? You can identify issues and problems, you know, quickly, right? So
Actually daily, if you're doing it correctly.
right, exactly.
It's daily, unless you know, because if you wait a couple of days, you're not reporting data, you're just trying to fix a problem, because now you see a variance and you probably don't have enough information to even track it to its root cause. So now you're just putting words on paper, and it doesn't even mean anything.
Right. It's kind of interesting.
Managers being given, are they being given budgets, or are they being simply told, we need to get this built, as opposed to this is what it's gonna cost when you build it? I mean, you got a
Well,
project manager, this is management, and management may not be doing that.
Well,
And
I
that
know most,
people don't know,
that's true, that's true.
you know,
I know that the project,
you don't know that.
that's true. I think that the project manager should
Should not. Yeah, they should.
should
They
hold,
should, but it doesn't mean they do. It just means they
right.
should.
The
Yeah,
project manager should hold a lot of authority
right.
and responsibility
Right.
in how numbers
Yeah.
are gotten. Don't just start putting stuff down because somebody, you know, said something to you at 12 midnight.
You should be responsible for not just coming in on time, but coming in within budget,
Yeah.
and coming in at a price that you know that you're supposed to be getting. And I don't know if they're doing that, but we need to find that out.
Right. And if every change is not being documented, again, that's just chaos.
Yeah. There are all kinds of places to look where this could be happening. It's there, they know it's happening, but you have to look at it to understand the specifics of where that is. And what within what part of the company has made this be integral to the company, so that it just happens.
Yep.
You got to walk through that to find out where that is.
You gotta walk through it. You're right. You gotta walk through it. And that's a scary thing, to pull people sort of off of a job to, if the system is not used to it, to start to do these things. And I know that that's one of those things, you know, the engine is going and going and going and going, and then now you're going to tell your people, okay, slow down and let's do this data thing and this reporting thing. And people who are out there, you know, making things happen don't necessarily understand the cost of quality, and they don't, then it's one of the things that I always hear, oh, that's just busy work. We got to
Yeah.
get things going. That's just busy work. But busy work could be costing you $400,000 a week or a
You're
day.
not doing busy work.
Yeah.
Right. That's right. I didn't say that correctly. You're absolutely right. And that's but that's what it takes. You have to slow it down so you can see it. And and in construction, they're moving so fast as they got these deadlines, they don't have time to slow it down. So they just keep going and going and going. And then,
And the fact that you can get software to do this is really helpful to basically give each person that.
yeah, but if you don't,
Or actually, you're not just saying, I want you to make this. We're going to give you the tools to help you understand how this is going to happen, as opposed to just saying, you should be doing this.
how many times have you seen your customers purchase, research, purchase and implement a new software, and because it wasn't implemented correctly, nobody knows how to use it, so they may spend $250,000 and nobody wants to use it because they just don't know what to do with it and don't have time to learn.
That's happened more times than I'd like to say, but it has happened a lot.
Yeah. So again, that's a culture change.
Yeah.
That's a culture change. So somebody's got to make big decisions.
Yeah. So, is there any other issue aside from what you've expressed so far that you see is of importance?
It's a good start. It's definitely a good start for that. That would be a good beginning. And we're going to find out, look, when you go in there, you're going to find out a whole lot of other things. But these are the things that are at top level that are very serious problems that you have to go in and understand what they are and then go to the root of those problems to, go further.
Yep. And so they need a good change management overhaul. They need a good metric, managing their metrics and their data. They need to do that, do an overhaul, find out where the data is coming from now and how they can enhance it over a period of time so it's not a shock to the system. Unless, because right now he's not losing enough money to worry
Right.
about a shock to the system, right? Evidently he's okay with,
Well,
what.
Yeah, I agree with you. Right now, it's enough to say, well, I know that I don't know it, but that's okay because I'm making enough money to make it be worthwhile.
Right. So you might have about 9 months to
Right.
implement a good change management system, a good corrective action system. Maybe get some additional training for your folks to make sure that they know what they're doing, some supervisory changes, and maybe the owner of the company may have to roll up his or her sleeves and really start going in and looking at what this is. If he or she does not have a person to go in and do that, and definitely the project manager lead needs to really start looking at where the data is coming from, why they're pulling certain data, and how they can enhance it so that they can make better data-driven decisions.
Right.
So there's a lot of systems that need to be enhanced, but
Start someplace.
you got to start someplace. Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
Well, we're just over about 35, 40 minutes into this, and I know you guys were on me about running so long. So unless there's anything else that you guys want to discuss about this company, I guess we can call this a wrap. and basically summarize the issue with this company. It's, management is obviously not taking advantage of some of the technology that they're obviously already paying for to do better job estimates and better job tracking to identify issues before they become so costly. Um, and maybe look at some of the site managers and determine whether they have the skills necessary to do their jobs, and also standardize, some of
Yeah,
the
good way to look at that, yeah, right.
things that they do.
Mhm.
Well, if that's it, I'd like to thank Deidre Mercedes and BJ Handel for sharing your insights on this topic today. I'd like to thank the listening audience and say, hey, remember, if you're checking us out on our YouTube channel, to hit the like button and also subscribe. And to you, I'd like to say thank you so much for listening. Until next week, may wealth be yours.